Hey everybody, good morning. Excuse me, Joel Rico here with the language of agreement. So every week I try to give you a little 5-10 minute boost, hopefully something that you can put into play right away, put it into your business right away. Um, Remember, as salespeople, our call really is we are professional communicators, and your job really is to connect with your clients, find out what they want, help them get it, and communicating, is the foundation upon which all that is built. And what kind of communication would you like? Do you like to argue? Do you like to be right? I like to set up agreements. I like to set up win-win agreements. I like to set up agreements such that everybody gets what they want. So how do we be the cause? How do we initiate agreement? Well, um, as you continue to listen and eavesdrop on other people's conversations, you'll hear that what a lot of people do is they say, well, here's what I think. And the other person will say, oh, well, here's what I think. And they're both kind of standing their ground, attempting to be right. Instead, I'm going to give you a tool today on how to, instead of being right, and how to set up agreements. I don't really care who's right. I just want to get along. I'm not attached to my opinion being right. And if you're attached to your opinion being right, great. I want to find a win-win solution where everybody gets what they want. So when we look at communication through the filter of how do we set up agreements, how do we structure and set up agreements, is it's always easiest to get somebody to agree with me after I first agree with them. So consider, if somebody says, I think, I'm in California, so I think the 49ers are the best football team in the whole world. Okay, that's an opinion, right? So whoever's listening to you is going to say, oh yeah, well, I think that this other team is the best team in the whole world. So both of those people are standing on being right. So one of the things that works beautifully to open up these conversations, set up agreements, is the first person says, I think the San Francisco 49ers are the best football team in the world. And if you're not a big fan, then how do we agree? How do we initiate agreement and remain in integrity? Well, we find the nugget in what they're talking about that we authentically do agree with. For example, you might say, oh, wow, I'm a really big football fan too. Okay, that's the place where you can agree. You could say, oh, the San Francisco 49ers. Oh, God, San Francisco is such a fun town. I dig it there. Right? I want to find the place where I can agree. Then, in the conversation, this forces you to listen. So after that, now we have some data. Now we know what's true for them, right? It just so happens, in this example, that your client is a fan of that football team. So later in the conversation, we can bring up, well, you're a fan of that football team, right? Now, think about that. What's the only way in which they can answer that question? The only way they can answer it is in agreement. So think about this in the sales process. Somebody says, hey, I want to sell my little house and buy a big house, and I want a big house on the hill. Oh, great. What's important about a big house on the hill? Well, we're having more kids, and we want some land, and we want a view, and we want to get out of the traffic patterns, and blah, blah, blah. So now that I know what's so for this particular person, then when we feed it back, we're doing two things. One, we're demonstrating that we listened. We're not saying, okay, great, I heard you, I got you. We're saying, let me make sure I got this straight. You want to upgrade to a larger home? And they go, uh-huh. And you want a home up on the hill? Uh-huh. And because you're having more kids? Uh-huh. And you want to be over there away from traffic? Uh-huh. And right? Uh-huh. So what I'm doing, this technique is called pacing. So pacing is finding out something that's true. Doesn't have to be true for me. It doesn't matter what I think. It only has to be true for the client. So find out what's true for the client. Demonstrate to them that you were listening by repeating back what is true for them. The only option they have is to go, yep, that's true. So one of my personal goals at, say, a listing presentation, just a game that I like to play, is to see how many times I can get the seller to say yes. So we'll talk and I'll ask some questions and I'll figure out what they want. And then I'll say something like, let me make sure I got this straight. You've been in this house for 8 years, and you paid this much, and you've upgraded the kitchen and this and that. Yep. And you're ready to move into a senior retirement home because you're bored and you like the activity center. Yep, that's true. And currently, we think this house is worth about $350. And you told me you owe about $175. Right? Are you starting to feel this? So all I'm doing is feeding back what they gave me. But the question is, what happens in the mind of your client as you're doing this? The client's going, yep, And deeper in their mind, they're thinking, whew, finally somebody who's listening. Finally somebody who's making it about me. Remember, in sales, especially in real estate, your job is to represent them. They're looking for a representative. So instead of saying, hey, let me tell you how cool I am and how great I am and how amazing I am, instead of that, represent them. Find out what they want. Find out how to help them get it, right? And just literally by feeding back to them, okay, you told me you want this, and it looks like this, and we owe this much. You'd like to be in by such and such a time, and you definitely need 4 bedrooms, and you'd like a pool, but it's not mandatory, but you have to have RV parking. And they're going, yep, that's right, So not only am I getting the client in a great, so we should probably sign the contract, right? So not only am I setting up what's called a yes set, the client's agreeing. Deeper in the client, they're thinking, finally they listened. Finally somebody's making it about me. So this is your tip. Ask a bunch of questions. Find out what's true for the client, and then demonstrate to them you heard them by literally feeding it back. Find the place where you can agree, because it's that much easier to agree with them. Now, this is a great practice all over the place. So if a fight breaks out and somebody says, oh, I think that's really stupid, instead of saying, no, it isn't, that's not stupid, I say, yeah, I see how that could be really frustrating. Yeah. Only then can I say, yeah, that could be really frustrating. And have you considered looking at it from this direction? Only after agreeing with them are they going to be willing to listen. So I want to start with agreement. I want to set up the pace of it. I want to agree as much as I can, where it's true, where it's authentic, and that will set the tone of them agreeing with me. And ultimately in sales, what you want is win-win agreements. So there you have it. If you've not been to the website, if this is remotely helpful, then you can go to thelanguageofagreement.com. There's some free downloads, there's some free videos, there's some training stuff. You can also see the link to our live 12-week interactive role play training, where in 12 weeks you'll do a lot of wax on, wax off, build some habits. In 12 weeks you'll be a sales ninja. So go check that out. And then last thing before we part is, today is July 3rd. Tomorrow is an American holiday. Most people know it as the 4th of July. Because I'm big on language and I think how we say things creates them, I'm just going to invite you to stop calling it the 4th of July and begin calling it by its true name, Independence Day. So as a sovereign individual, you are independent to make your own decisions and call your own shots and be free from government intervention. So I'm just inviting you to celebrate this beautiful holiday in the nature in which it was manifested, that of our own independence. So that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Have a great week, and enjoy the fireworks and the barbecue. Take care, everybody.